Hello, good evening, and what's up? This is Austin.
Aloy here.
Jiawei here.
Kenneth here.
Celine here.
And the question for today is, should business meet the team every day? But what does business mean in the first place?
Wow. So today we're like challenging one of the agile principles.
Yeah. So for me, business people are those that are connecting or customer facing. They are not technical people as compared to developers. So that's how I see business people, or how I define business people.
Mm.
How about the others?
For me, since if you're running safe, then you have a business owner for the train or the art. And for me, the business owner is usually the person who funds the train. So they're the one who are paying. And as a result, they would like the train to, I guess, do something for them. And to me, anyone from that department or who represents the same objective will be considered business people.
Mm. I think for me it's the one that focus on business outcome for the organization. So those are business people.
Okay, I guess we have roughly almost the same definition about business people. So as long as they don't do any technical work, then we consider them as business people. If everybody agrees, then we can start answering the question of today. Should business people meet team daily?
So I'm just thinking the team will be the one that delivering the work to achieve the business outcome. I'm making too obvious here, but yeah. That's to be clear. But then there's another role called business analyst. How do we fit that in?
I think it really comes down to what the business analyst does. So imagine if the business analyst actually works very closely with the team, because a lot of the times maybe business analysts will provide like technical requirements. They might participate in solution design, which is actually more or like closer to what the team actually does. Then I would consider them part of the team. If we're talking about looking at functional requirements, trying to understand or helping the business come up with business objectives, then I would think that's closer to what the business does and not so much the team.
Okay,
You tell me out.
sounds good. Julie, sorry.
Sorry, my business analyst sometimes be a bit confused in a sense with PO, in a sense of, because I'm hearing it's a definition. Is there some like link or something? Or like intersecting responsibilities?
Depends on the organization, actually. Some organizations have this kind of multiple hats. You cannot even distinguish which is the scope or which is the boundary of a team. So that can also be a challenge. That's why we even have here a difficulty of scoping down where's the boundaries of the team. Is it including business analyst or not?
I think if we look at the Scrum Guide, the smallest unit of the team is the team. It doesn't go smaller than that. Like, we don't talk about individuals in the team. So business analyst is very much a organization set role. Like, maybe your title might be business analyst, or that the company might think your role is the business analyst. But when it comes down to being a Scrum team together, you guys are just part of the team, like a member of the team. So if you're just part of the team, it's about how or what you do that helps the team achieve the iteration goal or deliver what they're supposed to deliver. But even if your title is business analyst, but your role in the Scrum team isn't part of the team, but like the PO, then I would think you'll be performing a PO role. So I think it really comes down to where that person or the business analyst is in the team? Are they given the role as the PO, or are they part of the team? And if they're part of the team, then they're working closer with the team, I assume. Then I would consider them part of the team. If they're maybe the PO, then they have a PO role. If they're neither and they're working closer with the business, I would think I would consider them the business instead.
Interesting. I think we talk about business and the team because from the agile principles, I see that it's between business people and developers. So that was the definition. So I just
Yes,
want to
it's a
clarify.
definition, and the wordings, if you
Mm.
really look at the principle, is not meeting but must work together. Doesn't necessarily mean that they really have these formal meetings, but they're just working together daily.
I think the difficulty in that is if you guys don't meet daily, it's very easy to not work together, if you understand what I mean. Like things might go in parallel and if you don't meet at all. So there's also the difficulty if people don't meet, how do you encourage them to work together daily?
But then I think there's also the tricky part of, yes, we want collaboration, we want to really be delivering something of value, but there's also a tricky part of if you're like constantly like making changes, it can be very disruptive for the team, especially context switching also. So I think that's another challenge also that needs to be considered, I guess.
Can you elaborate a bit more on the making changes? When they work daily, does that mean they are having changes, or is it because they are changing, or so
Yeah, so maybe if I can provide maybe I can share a bit of context whereby sometimes, right, yes, ideally you want to be on a daily basis. But let's say if okay, this is also a bit related to scope change, where if you meet on a daily basis, then in a sense there isn't a hard deadline where if there's no emphasis on a hard deadline, where just because like every meeting you're allowed to introduce changes to whatever is expectations, then this can eventually be very disruptive. And then what's the point in maybe sprint planning if you're going to have a change every single day if you're meeting on a daily basis? It potentially can happen, potentially.
I think this sounds like a thing that the PO should take care of because it talks about prioritization and whether something is more important in order to change the scope. And this is where I feel like it's beneficial to have business as the PO because the business are the people who are benefiting from the outcome or the goals that the team is or the developers are working towards in the end anyways. And I feel like it makes sense for them to have a say in whether something is more important, that they're willing to de-scope some of the stuff in the sprint backlog, taking note that once you de-scope something from the sprint backlog, some features that you want to you're working on might be completed later, further down the line. So I feel like they are the one who bears the responsibility and also has the most say over when things should be out into the market and how it affects their customer, the consumer, and business sales. So I feel like it really makes sense in that sense. But if the PO is part of the Scrum team, then I feel like it's quite easy to ensure, or it's easier to make sure that the business and the team works together every day. I'm not really sure how it works if the business is not in the Scrum team, if they're not even the PO. So I'm not really sure how that would work, if anyone has any examples.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of points here, but there's also this dilemma, especially if we are in a Scrum team, that most of the Scrum team that I have met, actual setup of Scrum team, at least in Singapore, is that they are assigned or they're working on a separate tickets. That is really not very similar, and they don't need to have this discussion together with the PO. For example, if we consider PO as the business representative, and having this meeting, especially when you talk about developers, most of the developers are actually introverts. So it means that they are spending a lot of energy just to have that meeting, and afterwards they go on with their separate work. So that's another part of it. We need also to consider how will the developers get the value out of meeting business people, wherein, especially in the context of what I've seen, Scrum Masters in Singapore, the Scrum team in Singapore, wherein developers are working with different tickets, different topics. So it's not really value adding when you have this business people meeting. But working together can be done. It's fine. But meeting together, I have some questions to that.
Sounds like you don't really quite agree with the statement to work together, and I think one of the
No,
reason,
I agree with working together, but I
okay.
disagree of meeting
Okay.
daily. That's
Okay.
that's my
So having a
that's my
meeting for the
stance.
sake of meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yes.
Okay. So meeting is for you one facet of working. Okay, Jia Wei.
Yeah, but I want to say, isn't that kind of like daily scrum as well, though? It's like we still have a 15-minute daily scrum every day, even though there might not be things that we really want to sing out, but it's that window of time where we make sure everyone is aligned. So isn't that a good time as well for business to be involved? I'm not saying it's necessary to meet for the sake of meeting, but if it's just for 15 minutes every day, just to make sure that we're all aligned, isn't it still good to have that? Then we also fulfill that criteria of working together because they're part of the team, and we're also meeting every day just to make sure we're aligned.
Yeah, but that being said, I think maybe there might need to be some, I would say, ground rules, because sometimes, yes, the idea behind ensuring that there is really the collaboration there, the idea is good, the idea is great, but there's also the tricky part of ensuring that you don't end up disrupting what the team is trying to achieve. So I think that's the part that's always the tricky part when we would invite people in for a great, I won't say greater good, but for a good purpose. And then there's also the tricky part of managing the bug.
Yeah, I agree with Chilin, especially because if you just follow the Scrum guide, you should have already your sprint goals. And the one of the main intention of having that daily Scrum or daily stand up, whatever you call it, is to make sure that everything has been done towards achieving that sprint goal. And if that sprint goal is always changing, that's why you need probably here your business people, then what's the purpose again of having that sprint planning, right? You don't have the stability enough to make sure that you're not disrupting in a sprint. Yeah, but it's kind of a dilemma, like give and take. So it's really hard. Yes, Aloysius?
Yeah. Sorry. I think the key is we have to understand behind this statement what is the intent of this statement. Why do they come out with this statement? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I also
So
want to add, sorry. I also want to add that I feel like there's definitely pros and cons in both cases. Like, the time spent, the value you're deriving from the time spent, and what's the best way for business and the team to work together. I feel like, but there's also, the other side of, or the concerns of not having this or not prioritizing this sometimes is that the team is working on things that might not necessarily have a lot of business value, or the business might not know or understand how much effort the team is putting into actualizing these business value, and that might be a bit dangerous because what I've noticed having the business work really closely with the team is when the business knows that something is taking a lot more effort than they originally estimated, then they can make an immediate decision on whether to continue or whether they don't think it's a priority anymore. Like maybe they thought this had a business value, but once they realize that the team is spending a really long time and a lot of effort working on it, they might realize that it's not worth the effort and they would much rather the team do something else. And sometimes these decisions you can try and find out during sprint planning, but not necessarily all the time, especially when there are bugs or like certain things that are raised in the middle of the sprint. Then I feel like that's where it's most beneficial.
Okay, sounds like working daily or meeting daily helps to reduce the cost of like doing something wrong or yeah, the feedback loop, I think. Shortening the feedback loop. Yeah, I think we also discussed before about the availability. I think the key behind the statement is to make both available to each other for clarifications on it. So what do you think?
Yes, for clarification, I'm not against it, but most of the time what I observe is that the clarification does not really need to meet the entire team. Just a few people and it's good enough. So yeah, maybe the wordings of the questions might need a little bit more specific, but yeah, I'm still against as of the moment, because if you have a lot of this distraction, then if you think about Stacy's matrix or Canavan framework, if it's always like changing, you're already a little bit more towards chaotic and not anymore in a complex and complicated environment. And anything, be it agile or anything, it's not really good to implement there. If especially it will just frustrate a lot of people if the change of direction is always changing day by day, or maybe even every 3 days. That's why in sprints you have every 2 weeks. If you have really a big change of direction, then at least try to do it routinely at around 2 weeks mark or in every sprint, or at least 1 week.
Maybe I ask a question. When you either work in a high performing team or you observe a high performing team. So what do you observe about them working with the business people? I can start myself. I think they don't really meet daily, but I think once they have questions or anything with the business or something that they need to work out with, I think they will come to a decision fast. I think that's the key. And the direction, a very clear direction. So this is what I observe for high performing team.
Sorry, Aloysius, can I just double check or like understand more about this team? Is like the business like the PO, or how does the business come into the picture?
The business will be questions about the business or like requirements for software development. So this is what I mean. I think when they have questions, it could be directly. They could talk directly to stakeholders, or could be through a PO as a point of contact. Yeah. So the point is to get more clarity and closer to what they want. It's not like to diverge from it. I think that's a key of a good working relationship between developers and business. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is as long as the team is autonomous enough, they will go and seek out business on their own for any kind of clarity that they have, right? So I just have one thought. Would the team's maturity level play a difference in how often they need to meet business or how often business needs to meet them?
Yes.
I would think
Indeed.
so. You also.
But is it possible to have a young and autonomous team?
You'll be
I
surprised.
think the Yeah, I think I would agree with Aloysius, and I think I'm not sure if I interpreted his words correctly, but I think the age of the team isn't the biggest factor into deciding, like how autonomous they are or how often they will contact the business. It really comes down, I guess, also to the maturity of the team. You know, the team can be young, but maybe they're very experienced in the field of work and therefore they know what they want to ask. And once the business gives them like the business requirements, they are able to figure out what that would look like, the stories and everything. There can also be a team that has been a scrum team for a really long time, but they're working maybe on a field that's relatively new. So it really depends on the maturity of the team as well. And I think a point that comes to mind when we talk about this is that there's definitely um a variety in the team. There's always someone who might be technically stronger, someone who might be stronger in like the architecture and stuff like that. But I think the question is about if the business should meet the team. I understand that, the team doesn't have to meet the business together, but I feel like in those sense, if the team has like a big range or it has a big range, it would really help if, they can like pull in their expertise from different areas and then gather that and then ask that question together, because I feel like within the team themselves, it might also bring alignment within the team. Because a lot of times when you ask questions, just because you're the one working on something, it might bring other thoughts about like other people who are working on similar topics. So yeah, I thought that would be helpful.
Yeah, and if I want to add, it's not only just the maturity of the people that is members of the team, but also the maturity of the business people and the organization supporting the team. Because yeah, if the organization is not also mature, then yeah, it's not gonna work.
So here's the interesting thing, right? With mature organizations, sometimes come heavy processes.
Mm,
So if the processes are heavy to that extent, wouldn't business kind of need to meet the team more often?
That when you say heavy, it's like heavy documentation, right?
Could be documentation, could be approval flow, workflows,
Okay.
go through different kinds of pull different kinds of strings throughout the hierarchical levels.
Yeah, when you
I
say
feel
you
like
have, yes, go ahead,
yeah,
Kelvin,
Kenneth,
sorry.
please go ahead. No.
Okay, maybe just a few sentences. When you say mature organization, what I mean here is mature in terms of agility. And most of the people, even safe, will say that if you have a lot of hierarchy, then you will lose out with this business agility or not an agile organization anymore. And one of the key indicators, as we learned in one of our classes in Scrum.Inc. or CI Agile, is that make sure that your decision making, that impediment or dependency will not take longer. And once the decision is made fast, then your organization is quite agile. So that means you have a little bit of flatter organization than a lot of hierarchy. So that's it. Yahweh, sorry, I cut you off.
No, not at all. Thanks, Kenneth. I think I wanted to say that as well. I feel like what Austin is describing is an organization that we might see often where it's been here for a really long time, and therefore like we use code mature and they have a lot of processes. But nowadays we're trying to make things go faster, and so I feel like there's transformation definitely going on in a lot of companies where we're trying to reduce the amount of time or all of the flows and processes we need to go through. In Scrum Guide, we also talk about having a PO who has authority, right? Like a PO who has more authority would be able to make the decisions. And I feel like that also plays into what we were talking about. Kenneth mentioned it a bit in Austin's question. If you have a PO who is of high enough authority and power, well, power is a bad word, but they will be able to decide. And once they make the decision, it wouldn't need to go through so many approvals and the team can react. So I feel like that's not necessarily true. Yeah. Anyone has anything to add? But I feel like going back before Austin asked the question about maturity of the business, and it's really true. I think sometimes it's easy for the business to have a long list of things they would like to do. Like they would like to do this, but how it translates into the working team, they might not have a lot of visibility and transparency on. Hopefully, like a closer working relationship would help with that. But I feel like the maturity of the business definitely has to come into really having a clear business priority and a very clear business vision, because otherwise the business and the team would be like kind of playing hide and seek in the dark, if that might be a possible scenario. So I guess it's really true, like what Kenneth was saying, that we need maturity on both sides as well.
All right, so I think we've heard a lot of views, and I hope we all learned something from each other today. And it's getting late, so toodle, people.
Thank
Toodaloo.
you.
Hello.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you next time.